I began the day with about 1.5 inches of the starter. I fed it 80 grams of water, 80 grams of flour. This recipe calls for a cool 1,000 grams. So I've got a random 800-ish of bread flour. Again, I'd like to use mostly bread, have all-purpose because I have it. I'm going to add in some whole wheat. I'm going to add in the garam flour. Use a little of this pesky coronavirus era all-purpose flour, of which I've got a lot. I'm going to put in my water, which in this case is going to be 800 grams of water. So that's a 10 to 8 ratio, and that's sort of an advanced one. A lot of people use 10 to 7.5. So this is just the big bunch of flour here. I'm going to mix it. Again, there's no leavening in this. We're just going to kind of make like just a shaggy mass of dough. And we're going to let this kind of sit for a good few hours, actually. All right, so I'm going to actually clean the bowl off because I'm going to be using this bowl and this flour for a day or so, and it gets really crusted on there. So I'm going to be covering it with saran wrap, so I put 2 sheets next to each other, overlapping. I'm going to spray it in the middle because I'm going to be covering this bread for 2 days over and over. So then I'm just going to kind of put it here and cover it. Okay, I'm going to be washing my hands because I'm about to get up close and personal. I'm going to now add the starter to my shaggy mass of flour. Yep, 150 grams of starter. I'm at 109. Get a close up of that. Oh, it's gross. I'm at 137. That should do it right there. Yep. Oh, I went over. It doesn't really matter that much. So I'm going to immediately add the salt. In this case, 20 grams of salt. Here comes a 20. There it is, 20 grams. I'm going to be folding it over in a very unique pattern. I'm going to grab it, pull it, and drop it over the back side. Up, fold it over. Around, up, and over. So again, I'm pulling it from underneath and dropping it over the back side. I'm going to wash the top of the bowl because it's a lot easier to clean a bowl that's not crusted out. Again, here it goes. Plastic on. I'll be using it multiple times. Done. Okay, so I put in the starter and I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator. And I'm going to fold the dough again and I'm going to wash my hands again. I'm going to come underneath and over. So here it comes underneath and over. It's a pretty wet mass here, but it's actually behaving quite differently than the first one. You can see that it's actually kind of making more of a ball. I think I'm on 4 or 5 here. As you go, the gluten starts to resist. So I'm kind of pulling it over and tamping it down on that side. I'm going to wash the sides of the bowl. Well, you can see this is the overnight raise of the sourdough bread. Looking pretty good. And as you see, by oiling the plastic, nothing sticks. Okay, so we've let the bread raise overnight. Now I'm going to just flour my cutting board. Board is floured. Pour out. And this is when you'll appreciate having washed the bowl off. So here's my dough. Got my hands floured. Got the bench scraper. I'm dividing this into 2 because I'm going to make a sourdough and I'm going to make some pizza crust. So I'm going to try to get some flour more underneath here. This is all about kind of just letting it stretch out. I'm not pulling, I'm just letting its own weight kind of do its own thing. Let's try opening it up. So now, reflour my hands. I'm going to kind of fold it in on itself, zipper style, almost like a braid. to the end. Reflour my hands. Now I'm going to bring it back onto itself. Not really so happy with that, but it does go away. Okay. Now, I'm going to let these guys raise. Back over here, that same piece of plastic. You may have wondered why it was double wide. Well, it's going to get big. All right, and thank you very much. We'll let that raise. Okay, well, I've let the dough raise, the first raise. So now I'm going to make it into the shape of a loaf. Reflour my board here a little bit. This is not rocket science. Here we go, peeling it back. Got my bench scraper, which is a really handy item. Flip. So I'm just going to take this and make it into the final shape. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of fold it under itself. Pushing it in and up under itself. In and up. Now the first one here, I'm going to let raise maybe 3 or 4 hours. And here's the important part. I'm going to let it raise on a piece of parchment paper. So I don't know why I just floured that. So I'm going to lift this carefully back onto the parchment paper. Cover it with plastic. And this is going to kind of go into our basement where it's cool. I'm going to preheat the oven to 500, which is pretty darn hot. And then I'm going to be cooking the bread in a Dutch oven. Don't really have a Dutch oven, but I happen to have a pizza stone and a cast iron pot, which I will invert and make into a Dutch oven in the oven. And here's your homemade Dutch oven. Cast iron pan inverted on top of a pizza stone. Okay, so I've let the bread raise for hours and hours. I've got the oven preheated for almost an hour at 500 degrees. It seems like a long time, but it really, really gets hot. Step back. Here's the Dutch oven that I've created. And I'm just going to put it up here. It's dangerous and 500 degrees. Here is my dough. It's really beautiful on parchment paper. It's kind of hard to pick up. There it is.
And what did you put it on?
Well, I put it on a pizza stone. And here comes back the Dutch oven top. There it is. Okay. Okay, so we're rocking at 500 degrees for 20 minutes. We'll see you then. So 20 minutes at 500 degrees in the Dutch oven, then I'll pull the lid off and I'll make it another 20 minutes, reducing the temperature to 400. At some point along, I will probably brush it with water or a milk, milk to give it some shine. Okay, 20 minutes later, let's take a look at this bread. Move away. Okay. All right, so here we got a nice looking bread. Sounds almost done. Rotate it, push it back in, give it the remaining time. Ta-da! We have bread. Let there be bread.